Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or
going live in just a minute.
The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert Show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from experts on such topics as legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to our experts in community association law, estate planning law, tax relief, Medicare, public insurance adjusters, neuropathy treatment, business brokers, and personal injury law, along with many other topics. Now here's your host for the last 17 years, Steve O.
Houston, welcome to another Ask the Expert show, where we bring you the finest experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. I am so excited about this show. I've been doing this for almost 18 years now. We switched over from local radio stations across the country to basically a podcast on 70 of the best platforms. And this show right here has become, in such a short time, our number one show based on the numbers. And let me welcome you. We're talking about community association law today. And if you live in a condo or an HOA, you are really going to appreciate today's show. Let me welcome Shannon Lang of Lang and Associates.
Hi, Steve. It's great to be with you again.
I'm like this kid in a candy store. I looked at your numbers last month and they've just shot up. People love your show. And it reminds me, Shannon, that one of my community association law firms, they do a seminar once a month. It's kind of a question and answer, and they usually get about 50, 60 people. And I went to several, but one of the ones I went to, I was listening to a guy talk, and he said, I'm not going to be here long. I just have one question, and I'm out of here. That guy ended up asking about 20 questions. People have so many questions when it comes to community association law.
Definitely. Yeah. Especially in a place like Texas, where so many of us live in HOAs, just because of the state's general view towards local and self-governance. A lot of people are going to find themselves in an HOA or a condo. So we get lots of phone calls, lots of questions.
I'm sure. And I got to tell you, we've got so many people who've already got questions already. And I want to, since we got so many new people watching your show, tell people about Lang and Associates.
Sure. We're a small boutique law firm here in Houston. I formed it about 10 years ago when I wanted to kind of get out of the grind of working in big law firms on, massive big cases. Over time, we just developed this community associations practice. We had a few clients, and word got out. We got a few more, and now it's a major part of what we do. At the same time, we still try to maintain a litigation practice, which means that, unlike some of our competitors, we do more than just collect debt, collect assessments. We help our associations with any type of issues that they have, vendor problems, employee issues, negotiating contracts, dealing with bad construction. We try to offer full service support to our community associations and are not mistreated, not treated rudely, so that the people that hire us can say to their homeowners and to their members, we make good decisions. We don't want to waste your money needlessly, and we want to make sure if you do end up having to talk to the lawyers that it's as pleasant an experience as it can possibly be. So that's what we try really hard to do.
I'm surprised we're getting so many board members are now watching your show. And, I want people to understand that you don't have a firm like yours representing them. Tell people why you should have a firm, a community association firm like yours to represent them if they don't have somebody already.
Sure. We do run into board members pretty regularly who don't appreciate that community association law is a specialty. It touches on various facets of the Texas Code and is impacted by common law and requires the exercise of good judgment. An HOA is a business, and some of these are very large businesses. We have clients with $1 million budgets. And so as an initial, we think that all associations should make sure that they do have a community association law specialist and not just, some guy their cousin knows who practices law. Beyond that, we particularly, like I said, we tout ourselves on our customer service, our communication with clients and with homeowners. One thing we take great pride in is that we answer the phone. There's no phone tree. There's no virtual receptionist. When you call our office, you're going to talk to somebody whose job is to solve your problem. And if you get our voicemail, it means that every single person in the office is on the phone, but we will call you right back. So we think that's important for our HOAs. We think it's really important for board members because board members aren't expected to be professional board members. They're not expected to know the intricacies of community association law. And we think that they should really be able to rely on their professional partners to guide them in doing their jobs the best they possibly can.
I'm looking at the questions on both YouTube and on TikTok right now. And there's a lot of people asking what kind of qualifications you need to run for the board.
None. We think that the best board members are the board members who just have a desire to serve. Now, in your governing documents, it's often the case that you have to be an owner of record, meaning that your name is on the deed to the property in the subdivision or the condo. That's not always the case, but about 95% of the time it is. I mention that because it's not uncommon that one spouse will be on a deed and another won't. And we will often find spouses saying, well, I own this because of community property. Community property is not an ownership doctrine. It's a doctrine about how you manage assets at the demise of a marriage. So we do point that out. So what do you need to do? Typically, you need to be on the deed. Beyond that, a desire to serve. You do not need to have specialty in finance or accounting or law or construction. It really is just a desire to serve, an ability to set aside a couple of hours a month and the ability to, we think it's important to listen to your professional managers and lawyers, to be able to work within a collective. Working on a board is challenging. Everyone's a first among equals. And being able to accept that you won't always be on the winning side of a vote. in my opinion, those things are what are important. But as a matter of law, the only thing you need to be is an owner if required by your governing documents. And there's also a provision in Texas that for subdivisions, you can't have been convicted of a felony or crime of moral turpitude in the preceding 20 years. But really, there's no requirements. Join the board. It's so hard to find people.
Yes. It's funny, Shannon, you brought that up. It's, we get, I don't know why we get all the complaints, because we can't help you at all. Our office can't help you at all. But it's funny. I just tell people, you know what? If you're unhappy with your board and the rules that are set, run for office, right?
Yes, we do that all the time. We get a lot of calls from homeowners who are looking for legal representation because they're unhappy with their board. And one of the first things we ask is, if the opportunity presents itself, will you run? And, in our office, the people that say no, never, not a chance are the ones we're less likely to want to represent, because if you're not going to be part of the problem, part of the solution, you're really not going to solve your problem. And so much of what we deal with in HOA are just people that complain. They just complain. All they do is complain. And some of that's just based on the lack of knowledge, but sometimes they're just malcontents. And it's very hard to work with some of those people if they don't want to be on leadership, part of the solution, and trying to make things better. We're always looking for people to run. It's not that bad.
Here, this is from TikTok. They want to know if you owe money to the association, can you still run for the board?
In a subdivision, yes. Texas law has invalidated any provisions in governing documents to the contrary. So the only thing that can prevent you from running and being on the board in a subdivision in Texas is that conviction for a felony or crime of moral turpitude. There's also provisions in the law that prevent spouses and cohabitants from serving on the board at the same time. And that shouldn't be surprising. I think the conflicts of interest there are pretty obvious. On a condo, it's a little different. Condominiums have broader authority when it comes to qualifying people for the board. You'll want to look at your governing documents, but it is very common that for a condominium, if you do owe money, you can be prevented from running.
Can you leave the HOA or stop paying if you don't use any of the amenities, Shannon?
No. This is very clear in the governing documents and just in the general idea of a community association. And this is particularly true for a condominium, where you are always using the amenities just by virtue of how a condominium is structured. But no, your decision not to use the community pool or what have you does not exempt you from paying assessments. The obligation to pay assessments is in what's called the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, or some variation of that name, which is recorded with the county and which you agree to the terms therein simply by virtue of accepting deed to a property. You are a party to that contract, you're a party to the obligations, and those obligations include to pay assessments. So use your amenities, and if you don't, recognize that the presence of those amenities does have a positive impact on your property values and the appeal of your community to potential future buyers.
This is from Harold. He wants to know, I just moved down here from New York. I'm sure you're in Texas. There's a lot of people from New York moving to Texas. They're not used to rules and guidelines like they were in New York. This gentleman wants to know, why are there so many rules? And please, people, tell us if you're an HOA or a condo. It does make a difference. But with hurricane season coming up, it seems like there's a lot of rules.
There are. Some communities do have a lot of rules. Others don't. One thing we recommend to people as they're looking for a place to live is to pay close attention to your title commitment and to the information you're getting from your realtor, from your title company. We find it stunning how many people don't read their governing documents before closing on a house and then get really surprised at some of the rules. But look, for a lot of these master plan communities, there are a lot of rules. And it's because those communities are set up in a way to, reflect on the builder and to create a lifestyle that is very attractive to a lot of buyers. So if you come into a community and you see well manicured lawns and consistency with setbacks and exteriors, and you see a well manicured swimming pool and a monument, you can bet there's probably a lot of rules, because otherwise a lot of people just don't do it voluntarily. Now, in a condominium, you should expect a lot of rules, and that's because a condominium is set up as shared ownership amongst all the owners. As an owner of a condo, you own the interior surfaces of the perimeter walls, ceiling, and floor and then a fractional interest in everything else. And because condominiums are generally very structured, very uniform, and maintained by one entity, by that association, you should expect a good amount of rules there to maintain that uniformity and consistency across the community.
Here's sort of a new question. I don't think this has been asked before. This gentleman watches your show every month. I really appreciate how you explain everything. He said, I'm going to talk to my board about hiring your firm. We need someone with your knowledge, but mostly how you communicate. My question is, my neighbor below, so I guess he's in a condo, smokes marijuana, and it's going through the vents, and it's coming into my unit. Is there anything I can do about this if the board is not doing anything?
Maybe. This is challenging and it's not uncommon. There's open questions about whether and to what extent an association can prohibit smoking and drug use inside a unit. And there's certainly some precedent that with deed restrictions, you can do a lot. You could commence a vote of the community to try to enact some rules to prevent that kind of use. But I will say it is hard. If you've got vents that are shared, it might be worth investigating whether there can be anything done to rearrange the venting so that you're not having it come in from downstairs. There are laws in Texas about nuisance, although they're tough cases. It's really not easy. I guess in some respect, it's a little easier in Texas right now because Texas just rendered unlawful most THC products that had previously been legal. That happened a few weeks ago. So you might get some relief from law enforcement. But from an HOA perspective, it can be tough. The HOA has very limited civil enforcement authority and is pretty much limited to enforcing deed restrictions. So if there's nothing in the deed restrictions about smoking and odor, that can be a tough thing for the HOA to take on. But there's generally provisions in there about not being a nuisance and not creating negative impacts on neighbors. And that might be a hook that could be used to try to enforce. Under Texas law, every owner has the right to enforce the deed restrictions against every other. So even if the association won't do it for you, you do have rights to enforce against your neighbors. And you might want to talk to a community association lawyer about what those rights might look like. I can't give specific advice without reading the documents, but yeah, the smoke and odors is challenging. It really is. We get these calls frequently.
Shannon, we get a lot of letters, people wondering if certain things aren't fixed. Like, for example, a roof. Can they stop paying until they do fix it?
No, we run into this problem all the time. Where we have owners that say, well, until you do X, Y, and Z, I'm not going to pay my assessments. The thing is that an HOA isn't a business. It's not generating independent revenue. It's funded entirely by assessments. And the board has to make difficult decisions about how to allocate limited resources to a variety of issues. If you're in a community where the HOA or the condo is responsible for the roofs, and in condos, the association almost always is, you can find particular challenges if your assessments just aren't high enough. And we run into this a lot where owners don't really understand the true cost of home ownership because they're baked into assessments in a way that is less visible, I think, than if you have your own home and suddenly have to put a roof on. a lot of the problems we see in these communities is simply lack of money. We are helping a community right now that desperately needs more new roofs. It's going to cost $800,000. They only pay about $250 a month in assessments. Those assessments have to pay for management, water, trash, security, all the grounds, all the landscaping. There's simply no money. And so when owners say, well, until you fix the roofs, I'm not going to pay, all they're doing is hastening foreclosure and the further decline of the community. You have to pay your assessments. It's not conditioned on the association doing something you want them to do. But more importantly, community can only function if everybody contributes to the cost of keeping it going.
So, Shannon, I want to apologize because I spent the first 6-7 minutes congratulating you on how popular your show is, but I think it was worth it. Shannon is with us every month. We've got so many questions that people have written in, and now with TikTok, it's even crazier. I want to share this with Shannon. I'm going to send this to you. As of right now, you've got 3.5 thousand likes for your show on TikTok.
That's terrific. I love that.
That's amazing. So, Shannon, how can people reach you?
We're online at shannonlanglaw.com. But the easiest way to reach us is by phone, 832-479-9400. Like I mentioned, we do answer the phone. If you don't get to us, it does mean every person in the office is on the phone. Leave a message and we will call you right back. We are happy to always talk to board members, and we'll take questions from homeowners. We do that all the time. If you've got a serious issue, we might need to bring you in for a consultation, but I'm happy to talk to people and give you all a few minutes of my time if you've got some questions.
Shannon, real quick, people are asking, do you represent associations outside of Harris County?
We do. We are all over Texas. We're concentrated here in the Houston area. Harris, Fort Bend, Galveston, Walker, San Jac, Polk. We're all over the area, but we also have clients throughout the state. We're happy to chat with anybody in the state about what we can do and how we can help them.
Well, Shannon, we are so blessed to have you. We will see you next month. And thanks again. And I'll be sending, God, these numbers are just crazy. I'll send them over to you. Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.